Well, hello, Doug.
Hello.
Cardell.
How
We
are
got her
you?
figured out. Good, fantastic. I guess I'll give a brief intro, very brief, and then
Okay.
maybe I'll just ask you to just give a few more details on, I guess, your origin story.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong on this, what I have for these bullet points here. But you have your PhD in you're an economic
Yes.
policy expert, so economics is your PhD.
Yes.
You're also an author of Why Socialism Struggles, exposing the economic errors that undermine utopian ideals.
Yes. And it just got word today that it's a bestseller on Amazon.
Well, there we go. We got you on perfect timing. So maybe tomorrow you would have said no to coming on. But no, I'm assuming you haven't always been an author. It didn't take you a long 20 years to write that book, I'm assuming. So what have you been up to since you've got your PhD, and what have you
Well, I've
been
been
accomplishing?
I've been a college professor. I've taught high school, junior high. I was an aide to a congressman for a while. I was a YMCA director. I've done a lot of stuff.
Right.
CEO of a corporation.
But studying the economy has essentially been your passion, I guess, for
Yeah.
quite a while.
Absolutely.
And your book is a focus on socialism. Why the added interest to socialism?
Well, the recent events in the country have quite honestly frightened me a bit. Um,
Hmm.
I'm very concerned that so many young people think socialism is a viable answer to the problems the country has, and it's not. It's dangerous. I think part of the problem is that too many people don't really understand what socialism is. They hear people like Bernie Sanders talk about socialism, and when people like Sanders talk about it, they don't mean socialism as real socialism.
Hmm.
Um, they talk about the Nordic countries, but the Nordic countries aren't socialist. Uh,
Hmm.
the, the Nordic countries are capitalist countries. The only difference is a slightly and only slightly larger safety net than the U.S. has.
Yeah. Where are you based out of?
I'm in about 50 miles north of Tucson.
Right. I'm in Canada, so I get a taste of socialism up here.
Mm-hmm.
I can speak to, I guess, some positive aspects of socialism because I think, they look up here and they say, well, they've got quote unquote free healthcare. It's not free at all. Most of our tax dollars go towards funding that healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not complaining about. I just think we're overpaying out of the tax dollars. But then you look at services like the fire department, the police, kind of based on socialist principles that your tax dollars are funding these public services. I think beyond that, it turns into a slippery slope where the positives kind of start to run out and the negatives start to slide in.
Mm-hmm.
I guess fascism, capitalism, socialism, kind of definitely the three focuses that you talk about. Go ahead and just maybe define those from your point of view as to what each of those is.
Well, socialism, like for example, I wouldn't include police and fire in socialism. Right? Socialism is where the government owns the means of production and all property.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't classify police as um, something that is owned. It,
Right.
it's provided. So to
Is
me, there's a difference between a service and the ownership of the means of production.
Yeah,
Um,
like our police is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and they're government funded at
sure,
large, and the local police is definitely funded off of some tax dollars. But in the states, it's probably more. Is it more privatized down there? That each police?
no,
No.
it's the same thing here. We have
Yeah.
s- most places have city police, county
Hmm.
police, state police, and then of
Yeah.
course there's the FBI, and
Yeah.
we don't have an actual federal police force that equates to the mounted police in Canada. Um,
Right. So
and
so those get away from the socialist definition in what way then, if they are government funded and government controlled?
well, because they don't qualify as a means of production.
Okay.
Their services. And
Right.
there's nothing wrong with the government providing services. Where the problem comes in is when they take over the means of production.
Hmm.
And so, and in socialism, they actually own it. You mentioned fascism. Fascism is a very close cousin to socialism.
Yeah.
Um, it's where the government controls the means of production, even though they don't own it outright.
Right.
And so, some examples would be North Korea is one of the few socialist countries in the world. And so, part of what frightens me is that I don't think the people that are advocating socialism or that think it might be a good idea are actually wanting the country to be like North Korea.
No.
Uh, uh, in China, for example, that's closer to fascism. Most people think
Yeah.
of China as being communist. There's no such thing as communism. Communism has
Hmm.
never existed. Um, the China is closer to fascism right now. Most of the enterprises in China are not actually owned by the communist government, or the
Hmm.
Chinese government. They are controlled by it,
Yeah.
and so that qualifies as fascism, not socialism.
Hmm.
Capitalism is where the all property and all uh, means of production are privately owned,
Hmm.
and so that those are the basic definitions.
Hmm. Um, you look at the United States, and it's hard not to think that yes, they are a capitalistic country. Canada too is based on capitalism,
Sure.
but they're starting to get a flavor of something else there. Canceling people. Who knows what goes on behind the scenes with some big business deals, and there's probably a lot of government control on Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, a lot of big customers and producers that do work for the government. I think there's a bit of government control slipping into a lot of corporations. Are you feeling that or seeing that? Would you be in agreement there?
Well, there is certainly some of that, but I wouldn't call that fascism.
Hmm.
In that case, if the government is a customer,
Hmm.
like any other customer, they get some control over what they're buying. And
Hmm.
so if I had the money and I went to Lockheed Martin and said I want you to build me a plane, I would get to tell them what I wanted.
Yeah, fair.
And so it's not a problem that the government gets to go to Lockheed Martin and say, "Here's what I want."
Yeah,
Um, that's reasonable.
yeah.
They aren't just uh, imposing controls over things they aren't buying. In other words, they
Yeah.
aren't telling Lockheed Martin, "We won't let you build this other plane for someone else."
Yeah.
They aren't
Yeah.
controlling what planes Lockheed Martin is able to build. They can build
Hmm.
anything they want, as long as when they build them for the government, they build what the government tells them to.
Yeah, fair enough. Like a home builder or anything else, I
Sure.
suppose you can compare that to. So, you hear about people and when they socialist people that want that, they say, well, universal basic income. Let's get everybody having enough money to afford to live, pay their bills, feed their children. Certainly hit some effective talking points to read in a headline, but what would the real life repercussions be like if you did instill a program like that on a country?
Well, a lot of problems. The first difficulty is that anything that gets done to separate the producer and the consumer, anything that gets done creates problems. For example, you mentioned healthcare earlier,
Hmm.
and you could make a claim that Canada's healthcare is a socialist enterprise.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean Canada is a socialist country.
Hmm.
Just like in the Nordic countries, some of the things are indeed socialist. Typically, it's healthcare and education. And the problem in both those cases, and the problem here in the US, here there is a fascist component in
Hmm.
healthcare and in education. And in both those cases, since the government has intervened, costs have skyrocketed.
Hmm.
Because the problem is, well, I went to a doctor yesterday. I had to get my eyes checked, and I have no idea what I paid.
Hmm.
It's all
Yep.
gets done somehow by magic, which means
Yeah.
I can't comparison shop, which
No.
means the producers get to charge anything they want and there's no control because the control is should be in the hands of the consumer,
Hmm.
but it's not. And
Hmm.
so ever since the government started intervening in healthcare and in education, trying to make things better. I understand that they're trying. It isn't like these are evil people that are trying to screw up the world. They're
Yeah.
trying to help, but they're doing things that can't ever work because
Yeah.
they're like you look at university education, it's gone up by a factor of 8, even in adjusted dollars here in the U.S. And the amount of money that goes to students hasn't changed at all
Yeah.
because it go when the government starts pumping money into the system, and it started doing that by saying, well, everybody's got to go to college, which is a dumb idea to begin with.
Hmm.
There's tons and tons of people that don't need to go to college, don't want to go to college, and would be better off not going. We need
Hmm.
electricians, we need plumbers, and those people do pretty well without going to college.
Yeah.
Um, but when they started pumping money into the system to get everybody to go to college, what did the universities do? Well, they jacked up the pay for the professors, they jacked up the pay for the administrators, and they put a climbing wall in every student union.
Yeah.
So buildings got bigger, a lot of people made money, but the students didn't get anything out of the deal.
No.
And what the students did get out of the deal was a ton of student loans they can't repay.
Hmm.
And so capitalism works when it's allowed to work. And the problems that most people experience, I mean, don't misunderstand. I know there's people out there struggling,
Hmm.
um, but they're struggling not because of capitalism, but for a variety of other things. I mean, clearly one of the problems is we live in a world that is very different from anything that's ever existed before in history. The world is changing really rapidly every day,
Hmm.
and it's going to keep changing. And so that means that people are going to have to adapt. Um, I mean, think 5 years ago, we couldn't have been doing what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And we're talking 5 years ago, not 100 years ago.
Hmm.
And and that changes everything. I don't know if this is your full-time job or not, but if it is, it's a full-time job you couldn't have had 5 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah. Emerging market
Yeah.
driven by
And-
capitalism. I mean, everything around you is because people are trying to earn money, and
yes.
by building products and goods and making them better and better and free competition, it by and large does improve life for the people that get to enjoy those benefits.
Yeah.
The problem is when life gets more expensive, so the simple things like groceries get out of reach for a lot of people. That's when they come crawling, or not crawling, but crying for the government to, we need socialism. People need to stop starving. And it's, maybe we need more fiscal responsibility out of the government to control inflation and the rising costs. But double-edged sword, because capitalism's allowed to happen. Apple can keep trying to raise the price on the cell phone and test the market. And if people keep buying it, they have the right to do so.
And more than that, that is you've hit on a big part of the problem,
Mhm.
and that is that a lot of these things are things that have changed.
Mhm.
Like people talk about housing affordability. I'm 77 years old.
Mhm.
When I grew up in Chicago, the house 6 of us lived in was 941 square feet. It had no central air conditioning, no central heating. We had a radiator in every room, no dishwasher, none of the things that people have in their homes today. So have housing prices gone up? Sure. Houses are 3 times bigger and they have all these toys that didn't exist before.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with cell phones. I mean, the first phone, the first mobile phone I got was for my car. That was probably what, in 1980, I think. And it took up half my trunk.
Yeah.
And
all expensive.
And it cost $3,000 if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
And so cell phones today are far, far more powerful and far less expensive, but they keep going up because we keep adding more and more and more features.
Yeah.
The average cell phone today is more powerful than the computer that put the men on the moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, let that sink in a minute. That's just huge.
Many times more powerful.
Yeah. And so, yes, stuff gets more expensive. Now, you mentioned food. That's a different issue. That was inflation. And for better or worse, the Biden administration has to own that. They just flat did that. They, and it affected the whole world. I don't know how much stuff has gone up in Canada, but
lots.
If it has, it's the fault of the Biden administration because they spent a ton of money they didn't have. They created money, and when the government creates money, that's no different than counterfeiting.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you're increasing the money supply without increasing the amount of stuff. Mm-hmm. And typically what you actually want is to have the amount of stuff and the amount of money change at the same rate.
Yeah.
So that there's a balance.
Yeah.
And creating a bunch of additional money, by definition, means the prices have to go up because now you've got more money chasing the same amount of goods.
Yeah.
And so when government does that, we get inflation. And for better or worse, inflation is usually not retrievable. In other words, all we can hope for is that wages will rise enough to compensate. We'll get back to where we were, but that could take a while.
Could not, I would agree and say, and this is a big question for me, inflation is not retrievable in a capitalistic country because no one's going to start lowering the price of their product out of the goodness of their heart unless I think even if they can get their supplies to build the product down, there's probably, hey, we're selling our product for this and we're making money and people are buying our stock. Can that be said if you suddenly were in a socialist economy? Can you control inflation more effectively under socialism?
Well, yes. North Korea does not have an inflation problem. Mm-hmm. But they have a problem that everybody in the country is living on $2 a day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you can control the economy completely, you can make almost anything happen, but it never works out well for the people.
No. At great cost.
Yeah.
And you can't build wealth in a socialist economy. Would that be very difficult to do so? It's
impossible. Yeah. Because there's no private ownership. And by definition, wealth is private ownership.
Yeah. Are there other examples currently or in relatively recent history of socialist countries?
Sure. Right now, Cuba.
Cuba's also, right.
Venezuela is obviously, for the last couple of weeks, has been in flux. So, but until a couple of weeks ago, it was a socialist country. We don't know exactly how that's going to turn out yet. But,
how is life in Cuba? What is obviously far better off than North Korea? I mean, they do have a strong tourist economy, but that's not really getting to the people. How does it work there with these tourist dollars coming and going?
Well, obviously it doesn't work well enough that people that can escape still come to the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always the easiest way to test. If you want to know where things are working best and where they're working worst, look at migration. Mm-hmm. Like right now here in the U.S., what we call the blue states, those that are controlled by the more liberal people, are migrating to the red states, the places
Yeah.
that are more conservative. If you look at the world, the last poll I saw indicated that about 1 billion people would come to the U.S. if they were allowed.
Yeah.
Well, that's 3 times the population of the U.S.
Yeah.
And I don't see anybody clamoring to move to Korea or Venezuela or Cuba.
No.
They aren't even wanting to move to less restrictive places like Russia.
Yeah. So is Venezuela a socialist nation right now?
Well, like I say, since they've just captured the dictator and
Yeah.
brought him
So
here.
prior to him, though, would you say it was a free market society?
Oh no!
or-
Oh well, okay. Before Maduro's predecessor was Chavez.
Mhm.
Before Chavez, it was the richest country in South America, and with the 4th largest oil producer in the world.
Yeah.
Now Chavez got elected popularly, but immediately installed socialism. He nationalized the oil companies, so on and so forth. Later on, Maduro took over from him, and now it's the poorest country in South America.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, 30th or something in oil production now. Its oil production has gone nowhere because the way socialism works is like this, or fascism. But what they do is they hire somebody like me. They get an economist and say, okay, you, or maybe 5 or 10 of us, and say, you guys run the economy. You tell us what to build, what to buy, what to plan. The
Mhm.
problem is it's a silly idea. It's impossible. I can't do that. And in fact, part of my research proved that the American government can't do that. What I did was I looked at the consumer expenditures that they project those, that the Federal Reserve here projects those. And that's a really good indicator of what's going to happen,
Mhm.
what people are going to be doing next. The Federal Reserve, over a 30-year period, what I did was I said, okay, here's what the Fed predicts. A year later, I looked and said, here's what actually happened. They were right 46% of the time.
Mhm.
They could have done better flipping a coin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'm not claiming that the people at the Fed are incompetent. They're not. I couldn't have done any better. The problem is they're dealing with something that is impossible to do. The economy is what's called a chaotic system. Chaotic systems occur when there are lots and lots of actors all affecting things. This was the idea of chaotic systems was first discovered in 1972 by a guy named Lorenz. He was looking at weather models, and what he found out was absolutely fascinating. He made it. Then he was using a relatively slow computer. He made a tiny change in his weather model and went to lunch. He came back and he was just shocked that the change in the output was dramatic.
Mhm.
And you've probably heard his famous quote, "Can a butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil precipitate a tornado in Texas?"
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. That's the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that word now, but they don't appreciate what it means.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing is true in the economy because things have tipping points in chaotic systems. And sometimes a butterfly flapping its wings can be that tiny, tiny push that tips things in one direction or another. And so I can say the same thing about the economy. I can say, can buying a pair of shoes in Canada precipitate a depression in Poland? And yeah, the answer is yes. Because of those things, it's impossible to predict because what would I need to know if I were going to plan the economy? I would have to know what every consumer in the world was buying, was planning to buy. I would have to know what every producer in the world was selling and planning to sell. Now, how would I ever get that information? Well, it's impossible.
My cell phone.
Yeah,
They're trying.
exactly.
It feels like they're sure trying. Yeah.
But yeah, there's no way to predict this stuff. And so, since it's unpredictable, you can't plan it. You can't plan what you can't predict. And that's the fundamental error of socialism.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line problem. Even if you agree completely with their goals, which I don't, that's a different issue too. But even if you buy into all of it, it's going to fail because it can't be done.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people in North Korea live on $2 a day.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, people talk a lot about income inequality and wealth inequality. Look at the socialist countries.
Mm-hmm.
Do the people in Cuba do as well as the leaders in Cuba? No.
Exactly.
Their inequality is far higher than it is in the U.S. In fact, the U.S. and Canada there's a measure for inequality called the Gini index. The U.S. and Canada are right in the middle. Mm-hmm. About half the countries have higher inequality and about half have less. And so it's not like either your country or mine are out in Crazyville somewhere. We're not. Mm-hmm. Now, but the other thing about inequality is a good thing. And that's another thing people don't get. Right now, I'm talking to you on a PC. I don't know what you're on, but mm-hmm. And we're talking on the internet. Mm-hmm. Now, this couldn't have been done without Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Now, people complain, well, Bill Gates is rich. Wow. Now, why is that a problem? Mm-hmm. Bill Gates created more value for the world. We are all immeasurably better off. I know we get upset with Windows once in a while when it crashes, but that's a different thing. He created huge amounts of value. I'm right now on a system called Starlink, created by Elon Musk. I couldn't be talking to you right now if it weren't for Elon Musk. Now, Elon Musk got rich because of that. Do I care? Why would I care? My life is better because Elon Musk did this. And that's the part that people don't understand. And let me digress into a little bit of history because I think that's where the problem actually comes from. From the year 0, or actually technically the year 1, to 1500, if you look at per capita GDP, which is the best measure of how well people are doing, if you look at that worldwide, from 1 to 1500, there was no change. Now think about that for a minute. 1,500 years, people in the world were no better off. That's something that today is hard for us to imagine, but that's the way it was. Then in 1500, things started to change a little bit. Oh, by the way, I should mention that during that time, if you wanted to get rich, since the amount of stuff wasn't changing, there was only one way to do it, and that's take it from somebody else.
Yeah.
And so that's where the legend of Robin Hood came from. And back then, that made perfectly good sense. The rich were the bad guys. Mm-hmm. Now then, around 1500, things started to change a little bit. There was small infusions of capitalism. What happened? Well, from 1500 to about 1700, the world per capita GDP got better off by 40% in just 200 years. 200 years made a bigger improvement than the prior 1500 had. Yeah. Now then, in 1700, things got really crazy, largely because of the U.S.
Industrial.
The U.S. was the first country in the world to enshrine patents in its constitution. That's huge because no patents means no entrepreneurs. Because who in their right mind is going to spend years trying to invent something only to have somebody else take it from them?
Yeah.
That's gigantic. And since then, per capita GDP in the world has increased by 18 times. In the US and Canada and most of the developed world, it's closer to 40 times.
Wow.
That's gigantic.
Yeah.
Capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than any system ever imagined. Now, what's different? Well, what's different is back in 1500, remember, the only way to get something was to take it from somebody else. In economics, we call that a fixed pie. That is, there's a pie of a given size, and that pie, if you want a bigger piece, you have to take somebody else's parts.
Yeah.
But what happens in capitalism is we grow the pie. And so what Bill Gates did was make the pie a whole lot bigger. So you and I got a bigger piece of the pie than we had before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yeah, his piece got a lot bigger too. So what? What matters is my piece got bigger. Your piece got bigger. All of our piece got bigger. In fact, in the US and Canada, it's 40 times bigger.
Yeah.
And so now the rich aren't the bad guys anymore. Unfortunately, we are still stuck in that mindset.
I know. Yeah, it's just baked.
Yes, it's baked in. You're exactly right. We're
Baked in.
stuck there. And so we think that the rich are taking from us. We think that if Bill Gates got something, he must have got it from me.
Yeah.
But now the absolute reverse is true. It's Robin Hood backwards.
Yeah.
The rich are getting rich by making all of us richer. And in fact, you look at the top wealthiest people in the world, and right now they're all Americans, but every single one of them got rich by making everybody's life better. They didn't get there by. Now, let me make clear. Are there capitalists out there doing bad stuff? Yeah, there are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm not picking on hedge fund managers, but I'm sure there are hedge fund managers out there that are getting rich and not doing anything to help the rest of us.
Well, I mean, you can even look at a drug company. I mean, they've paid out hundreds of millions of dollars in lawsuits for hurting people with bad drugs or whatever it may be since the 80s. There's a good example. By and large, I'm glad we have healthcare, and many of their products are great, but they do get by with the odd bad one. So there's a good example.
Yeah, and that's the important thing to understand is that people blame capitalism for what bad capitalists do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important to remember that there are bad people in every aspect of life. There are bad economists, there are bad pod show hosts, there are bad police, there are bad doctors, there are bad anything you want to pick. And it's the government's job to regulate that. I was in a discussion with somebody the other day, and they said, well, it's just terrible that capitalism created slavery. And I said, wait a minute, capitalism didn't create slavery. And they said, well, sure it did. People bought and sold slaves. And I said, yeah, that's true. How do you pay more taxes than you're allowed to, than you're required to? Well, no, of course not. If the government allows slavery, there are going to be bad capitalists that exercise doing slavery.
Yeah.
But that's a government problem. That's not a problem. And it's really important to make a distinction between fascism, where the government controls the economy, and a government controlling criminal activity, things that are bad for people. That's what the government should do. Government involvement in daily life is critical. We don't want anarchy. And so people often call laissez-faire capitalism, means just let it be completely. I'm not saying that. We need controls. We need to stop people from doing things that aren't good for the economy and or are criminal. And so it's really important that we draw that distinction between what government does and what's done by capitalism itself. Capitalism is an economic system. It has no power. Capitalism can't make anybody do anything.
Mm-hmm. No. And it comes to wealth inequality, and people are complaining about the 1% and, I can't afford to buy groceries, but I don't think you'd be able to afford Starlink if all the employees making it got paid $100 an hour.
That's exactly right.
You would not have these products. You would not get them made. That's why these things are outsourced to countries that have much lower labor costs. which everybody enjoys, even though they don't want to admit it. I mean, look at your
That's
cell phone, computers, everything. So as we increase minimum wage, you're going to feel that if we're building the product. I mean, it gets rolled right down to the consumer. But if you want to start a business, I mean, you can't go and just pay exorbitant amount of fees and labor getting it built. You're never going to get off the ground. So, and if you have a successful product, you should be able to sell it. If more people like it, that's just in turn more money for you, which, by the way, Bill Gates is not walking around with $80 million in a briefcase. It's intrinsic wealth through the value evaluation of his companies.
right.
Elon Musk. Yeah.
And they both have it invested in lots of good stuff that help all of
Reinvest
us.
it.
Yeah.
And reinvest it. Like, I'm not a big proponent for Bill Gates, lots of different things, but a guy like Elon, and doesn't have that money in a bank account. He's trying to grow a business and create other companies and create value for people. People almost ignored Donald Trump when he said, I'm giving tax breaks to corporations, and then people came running out of the hills with their pitchforks. It's like, well, where do you think the jobs come from? Businesses. They create jobs, and if they can create more wealth, guess what they're going to do? They're going to grow their jobs.
Yeah.
And it's a simple concept.
Yes. And along those same lines, people say tax the corporations.
Yeah.
Talk about a stupid idea. It sounds lovely. Let's get somebody else to pay the bills. But corporations can't pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
They have no means by which to do that. When corporations operate under the law, and part of that is that they can't do things to harm their investors. They have to, by law, they have to do what's best for their investors. And by the way, their investors aren't making money hand over fist. It's typically around 6, 7, 8%.
Mm-hmm.
But since they aren't allowed to do something to hurt their investors, all they can do is raise prices.
Yeah.
And so whenever you tax the corporation, all you are doing is taxing every consumer of that corporation's products.
Yeah, they're not just going to eat the loss on paying the taxes.
They can't. It would be illegal for them to do so.
It would destroy their share price. Yeah.
Yeah. And people talk about, well, gee, what's wrong with doing that? Well, what that would do is eliminate liquidity in the market. And that's a fancy way of saying people would no longer be able to buy and sell stock.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't do that, you can't get investors. And if you can't get investors, you can't build stuff.
No.
Capitalism is way simpler than most people think it is. Assuming the weather holds out here, when we're done with this podcast, I'm probably going to go for a run.
Yeah.
Why am I going to do that? Because I'm a capitalist. Huh? Yeah. Because capitalism is the idea of investing today for a benefit in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And while I enjoy running, I probably don't enjoy it enough that if I didn't think there was some future benefit, I would keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm doing it because I want to be healthy for another 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
And I understand that running is going to be one of the things that gets me there. That's capitalist thinking. Education is capitalism. It's saying, I'm going to invest my time and money today to get something better in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you do something with the idea of improving life in the future, you're a capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yeah, we do that with money too, but capitalism is the economy of hope. It's all based on the notion that I hope there's something better in the future, and if I take these actions now, it can get me there.
Yeah.
And what Bill Gates and Elon Musk and the like have done is what I would encourage everyone to do. And that's a lot of what's wrong with our education system here in the US and in Canada. We don't teach people the right stuff. We tell them they have to work. We teach them they have to work for a living. That's stupid. Work is not a measure of anything. You can go out and dig holes all day, fill them up again, and you won't make any money.
Mm-hmm.
Why? You've created no value.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's what Gates and Musk and people like that have done. They've created value.
Mm-hmm.
And what in my ideal world, what we want is to have everyone find out what they love, develop their talents in that area, and then use their talent and their love to create value for other people.
Mm-hmm.
That changes your life. When I got up this morning, I didn't go, oh, I've got to get to work. I've got to go do this stupid podcast and
Mm-hmm.
whine about it. And I'm betting that you didn't either.
No.
I woke up excited. I was ready to go on. In fact, you and I were both a little disappointed. We were having trouble connecting.
Yeah. We made it
And-
work. Hopefully we
yes.
add value to people's lives here.
And yes, and that's exactly the point. I may sell a few books out of this deal. You may make some money in your podcast, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not why I'm here. And I don't think that's why you're here.
No.
I'm here because I want to create value for our viewers.
Yeah.
And hopefully we will. Hopefully that everybody that hears this will get something of value that will make their life better.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is about. And if everybody is doing that, think what the world would be like. But look at all it's so sad that the people that go to work every day hating their jobs.
Yeah.
Now, let's, think about some guy that's flipping burgers somewhere and he hates his job. He doesn't like it. He's having no fun. But what if he changes his mindset just a little bit? What if he says, that guy that just pulled up in the drive-through, he came here because he's hungry and doesn't want to cook. Maybe he can't cook. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to cook him a burger that's the best burger I can possibly make.
Yeah.
And I'm going to serve it to him cheerfully, happily. I'm going to try and make his day when I give him this burger. Now, if he does that for a week, he's going to feel a whole lot better about himself. I guarantee that's true. He's going to start getting a sense of pride and going, wow, I'm really helping people here.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, in most cases, not every case, but his employers are going to notice that. And he's going to start moving up in the company.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens all the time here.
Yeah.
The current CEO of Costco started out there 30 years ago as a forklift operator.
Wow.
He wasn't some fat cat that bought into this. That isn't the way things happen anymore. Bill Gates started out with a computer in his garage.
Yeah.
We're not talking about people that got to where they got by being rich to begin with or any of those things. They got to where they got by creating value for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like I said earlier, I know there's people struggling. And I also know that guy in the burger place, for whatever reason, his boss might not appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
His boss might be jealous or might feel threatened or who knows. Then that guy's got to go find another job. He's got to find a place where using his love and his talents are appreciated.
Yeah.
And yes, that there's going to be a financial hit because of that. Or maybe he'll say, you know what? I'm not just good at baking burgers. I could do something else. I learned how to do this. I could learn how to start a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I could go make money doing that. Or I could go get a PhD in economics and write a book that's a bestseller on Amazon.
Yeah.
That's how people get to these places. And in all modesty, yeah, it's a bestseller on Amazon, but it's because I was busting my butt trying to create value for other people.
Yeah. Nobody handed you that book.
No, and I didn't start doing it because I wanted to make a ton of money. I want to change the world for the better.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that that's what you're trying to do too.
Yeah. I'm trying to change it for myself and educate myself and hope people enjoy it along the way.
Yeah.
And if everybody I have on here, I find interesting. So if people pick up on that and they're interested too, great. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And
And I think when the birth of capitalism happened, I mean, most of the initial jobs where people created a market, they were all originally kind of roughly probably niche markets, blacksmithing and whatever else. They all did it because they found something that would directly add value to somebody else.
that's right.
There wasn't unnecessary jobs just floating around. Everything was just a orchestrated a team, I guess, of people trading inherent value with each other.
And that's what it should all be about
Yeah.
is each of us creating value for others and then trading the value that we create. Because
Yeah.
that's the other thing people don't understand is that people think that that the cost of something is the determining factor, but
Mhm.
it's not. Every one of us has a little list in our heads of what we value most, second most, third most. It's a little messy. It shifts around a lot. Maybe it's even more like a web. But I would challenge your listeners, think about the 10 people you know best. Do they all drive the same car? Do they all have the same cell phone? Do they have all the same kind of stuff in their house? Do they all have the same kind of housing? And the answer to all of those is no. And the reason it's no is because we all have different values. Now, what difference does that make? Well, let's say you and I go to a restaurant and you like breadsticks and I like salad. And when our stuff comes, I offer to trade my breadsticks for your salad. You're probably going to go, yeah, that's great. Let's do that. Because
Yeah.
you like the breadsticks and I like the salad. But do we care what the menu price of the breadsticks and the salad was? Well, no, we both got what we wanted.
Yeah.
That's the way it works when you trade value. What we're all trying to do, we do it through money, but what we all really are trying to do is take something that we value more than someone else values it and swap with them.
Yeah.
We do that through a complicated economic system, but that's really what's going on. Is I'm taking what I value and trying to get it by trading away stuff that I don't value as much.
Yeah.
And somebody out there is going to want the thing I'm trying to trade away.
Yeah.
And so, you're wearing a tan shirt, I'm wearing a burgundy one, and we're
Yeah.
probably doing that because that's the way we want to dress.
Yeah.
And I don't want to trade.
Yeah.
And so, but if you were wearing a shirt that I like better than what I was wearing, I might want to do that.
Well, sorry, I didn't dress up today. But no, it's one man's junk is another man's treasure. I mean, we all have that old beater car. That guy can just say, that is a gem. I'm going to restore that and it's going to be beautiful. And the guy's like, $500, get it out of my eyes,
Yeah. And because of that, since we all value different things, we're all going to get different things as a result. I'm also a musician. I've got lots of friends that are musicians. And for some of them, it's their only gig. That's what they do. And most of them don't do great financially because they say don't quit your day job. And if you do, it can be a little rough. But the musicians I know that are doing that are happy because they're doing it not because they want to make money. There's the line in the Jimmy Buffett song, or not Jimmy Buffett, blanking on his name, but the song American Pie. And I knew if I had the chance, I could make those people dance and maybe they'd be happy for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the way some of my musician friends approach things. That they're creating value. They want to make those people dance and be happy for a while.
Yeah.
And because of that, they're willing to take less money.
Yeah.
Now, in a socialist economy or even in a welfare state, we would say, well, that's bad. They're not making enough money. Well, who am I to say that their way of producing happiness for themselves is wrong because they don't make money according to some arbitrary standard that I set.
Mm-hmm.
That's just wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in my book, one of the things I look at is I take a dozen or so famous people and look at the value they created. But then I say, what if we swapped? Should Paul McCartney have been the guy in charge of running D-Day?
Yeah.
Would you want to get a painting by Dwight Eisenhower?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Maya Angelou should be producing hit records?
Mm-hmm.
Or Pablo Picasso writing poetry? No,
Mm-hmm.
we all have our own talents. And unlike in socialism, we need to be free to pursue those.
Mm-hmm.
But that will produce inequality. Paul McCartney makes a lot more money than I do. Who am I to complain? He's made my life better. He's
Mm-hmm.
made millions and millions of people's lives better because he's made them happy for a while.
Yeah.
And why should we whine about that?
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't. We should be grateful to Paul McCartney.
Mm-hmm.
And another example would be Jeff Bezos, creator of Amazon. I actually ran the numbers on that. Amazon, on average, makes everybody's life in the US and in Canada $2,000 to $3,000 a year better off.
On savings.
On savings. Exactly right.
Wow.
And so Jeff Bezos has made me a present of $3,000 a year. Plus, I don't have to go shopping.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm going to whine about the fact that he made money doing that?
Yeah.
That's just nuts.
Yeah.
And so I think another thing that people are concerned about in capitalism is it's messy. I think in some respects, that's the thing they really don't like. And yeah, it's messy. It's unpredictable. It doesn't always do things the way you think they ought to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But it works.
Yeah.
And because it's a chaotic system, it functions on a thing called spontaneous order. That is, it works accidentally almost. A really good example of that is our bodies. We like to think our brain is in charge, that our brain is controlling our bodies, and that's just silly. First of all, half the cells in your body aren't even human. There are viruses, bacteria, fungi, all kinds of crazy stuff in there that clearly you can't control. But even the cells that you can control, I mean, somewhere there's a cell in your kidney somewhere, and it doesn't know you exist.
Yeah.
It's not out there going, you know what, I'm trying to make James's day better today. No, it's doing what it needs to do to survive and grow and reproduce. And it just happens to be in the environment of your liver. Your liver is just where it lives. And it's like a consumer in a capitalist society. It's just doing what it does. It's following its own self-interest, but you're benefiting from it. That's true of almost every environment, not just our bodies. For example, squirrels. Squirrels don't run around the world going, my job is to plant trees, got to go plant these trees, got to go plant these trees. No, it's not doing that. It's going, I need nuts to save for the winter. It's pursuing its self-interest, but the world benefits, the environment benefits because of that. Same with bees. Bees don't go, gotta go pollinate those flowers, gotta go pollinate those flowers. No, they're pursuing their own self-interest. They're gathering honey for themselves. They're not doing it because somebody, they're trying to make the world better. They're just trying to get more honey for them. And so that's the way capitalism works. If we all pursue our self-interest, now again, there are times when we may have to be policed. If we start doing bad stuff in our self-interest. In our bodies, an example of that is cancer. If I get a cancer diagnosis tomorrow, now it's time to bring my brain into the situation. Now I've got to say, whoa, I got to do something here. I've got to go get chemo or radiation or whatever I've got to do to get rid of this bad actor that's messing up my body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the government should be doing. If, again, I freely acknowledge that there are bad capitalists,
Mm-hmm.
and we can't blame the capitalists per se for that. We have to blame the government for not regulating them.
Well, what are your thoughts on the narrative that the gap between less and more is growing? The richer are getting richer, and the poorer are getting poorer through inflation. And the richer are getting more control over the government through corruption, payoffs, deals, and things like that. And I think that's a source of a big complaint to this today, is that narrative on capitalism.
Well, there's two parts to that question. So let me take them one at a time. The first one is the idea that the rich are getting rich and the poor are getting poorer. Well, first of all, that isn't even true.
Mm-hmm.
The rich are getting rich, yes, but the poor are getting rich also, but more slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Even the poor today in the U.S. are better off than they were 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact. There's no way out of that. But that isn't necessarily surprising. Let me rephrase that. I just told you a little while ago that I'm a runner.
Mm-hmm.
What if I made the statement, runners are getting better at running and non-runners are getting less good at running?
Yeah.
Well, duh. Would that actually surprise anybody? No, of course not. The rich get part of the reason they get rich is they focus their attention on making money.
Yeah.
I have investments. I buy stuff for the purpose of making money.
Yeah.
I've been doing that since, gosh, I was a kid. I mean, I actually started investing when I was a paper boy at age 12.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, I mean, that's a way of thinking that some people have and some people don't. If you practice doing that, you're going to get better at it than people who don't practice doing it.
Well, the more wealth you have, the more rapidly it grows because you have a larger pool to grow percentage.
That's of course
on a
true.
Percentage base. Yeah.
That's of course true. But you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I told you, I lived in a 6-person house in what would now be called a tiny house. So I certainly wasn't born by any stretch of the imagination wealthy or even close. When I mentioned my job as a paper boy, when I got my first check, I bought two things. I bought a shirt and I bought a steak because I had heard about steaks and I had never had one. I wanted to see what all the talk was about. And I bought a shirt because that was the first piece of clothing I had ever had that wasn't hand-me-down.
Yeah.
I wanted to buy something that I made a choice on. And so, yeah, you got to start somewhere. I would tell every one of your listeners, if you're not investing 10% of your income, I don't know how little you make, invest 10% and do it regularly. Every paycheck, take out 10% and invest it. You can put it in a 401k but find a safe way to invest it. You don't want to be taking a lot of risk when you're starting out because you don't want to lose it all. But you're in the US and in Canada, you're definitely paying more than 10% in taxes. Oh. You owe yourself more than you owe the government. If you aren't paying yourself first, you're making a huge mistake. And I've been there. I've been on eating ramen noodles for 6 months. I know what it's like to live hard. But if you don't do that, you're going to be stuck in that life forever.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, be a capitalist. Do what you have to do to invest so you have a better future. That's what you're not allowed to do in socialism. In socialism, you can't do anything to improve your life. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
there are no actions you can take. Working harder doesn't help. Working smarter doesn't help. You can't do anything for yourself. Who wants to live that way?
Yeah.
And so yeah, capitalism is messy. It's hard to see the end game, but it works.
Jealousy and being envious of others is just, you got to beat that out of your head, because that's your knee-jerk reaction when you see the guy driving by in the nice car and has the big house. Well, you just think there was a genie that came down and made that happen.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
that's nuts. Yeah,
because I'm not stupid. I'm not dumb. I work hard. Why don't I have that? You know, well, you should reevaluate maybe your decision-making process and your circumstances, and try to better yourself. It takes decades.
yeah, it
You know,
can certainly take.
most people don't become millionaires till later in life.
That's right.
Like 50 or 60 years old, they spend their whole life trying to get there. And when they finally do, it's been a life earned.
Yeah,
It does not happen overnight. And, you know, just going from renting to owning could be a 10 to 15 year process, you know, or maybe you're a real estate investor and do it that way. But great points. So what are your opinions on the perceived growing corruption among the elitist
that's
class?
the second part. And yeah,
Yeah.
again, that's a problem of government. I mean, we have to start looking at electing people that will not corrupt things. But
Yeah,
part of
very
that
tough.
means doing things that we have to put controls in place. Certainly, I'm one that is a very in favor of term limits. In the U.S., when the Constitution was invented by people who didn't envision public service as a thing, as a career. One of the places you can see that most clearly in American history is George Washington. After George Washington served 2 terms, there was a big clamor to make him permanent, to make him a king or a dictator. And he said, no, 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 no. That's not why we didn't invent this country to be like that. I'm just a temporary placeholder. I'm not supposed to be here for the rest of my life. I'm just here to do the best I can for 8 years.
Yeah.
And that set a tone that is what we want our politicians living up to. But some of them exploit that.
Yeah.
I think we need
Congress has no term limits, correct? Senate?
correct.
Yeah. And you can just see the stories popping out of people that have paid to play, and they get wealthy on a relatively modest salary, and you know there's things going on behind the scenes, and they have a lot of power. And those definitely, I think, need term limits to be instated there. But also, the wisdom's important. It's kind of a double-edged sword. These guys have a lifetime experience, and a lot of them do try to make a difference. They're not all bad.
No, of course not.
But then you could be an advisory role or start a consulting company. I mean, there's options to keep that wisdom in government.
Yes, absolutely. There's lots of ways to do that. Another thing I would change is lobbying. We have to take the money out of the system. And it's going to be complicated to do that. But it can be done. And I think it has to be done.
I almost think if you're a primary, the amount of money you get to spend on your campaign should be provided to you by the taxpayer, and whatever it may be, $10-20 million, a very modest amount, and that is it.
That's one possible solution. Yes,
and then you're done, and then people go and vote, and you can rewatch their speech or whatever they wanted to do in a couple debates, and view their life work leading up to this, and vote based on that. But I mean, the pay to win is just
we've got to get the money out of the system.
Get the money out of the system. Yeah.
And there's a lot of other things we could do, but corruption is definitely the enemy.
What were your opinions when Biden was running on, we're going to pay off the student loans?
Well, like I said earlier, anything that gets between the consumer and the producer is never a good idea.
Yeah.
I would suggest that I feel bad for the kids that had those student loans. But the problem was created by government getting involved.
Yeah.
They were the ones that did it. So, I mean, could you make a case maybe that the government could help them in some way? Maybe. I mean, I'm nervous about it, but uh, forgiving them is definitely not the answer. But
Well, the government already provides no ends to programs and grants and scholarships. I mean, there are a ton of tools available by government already to people seeking an education. You chose the loan.
yeah,
I
and
think better education leading up to that point would be important.
yeah, and sadly, it it too many people are using those loans to do dumb stuff.
Yeah.
They're getting a degree in feminine studies, and I'm not putting down people who want degrees in feminine studies, but you're not going to get a job because of that, probably.
Or not that's going to be able to enough to afford to pay off the debt you've created for yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people are going to think I'm a monster saying this, but my wife and I made clear to our kids early on we weren't going to pay for their college.
Mm-hmm.
This is because my wife and I both saw too many people whose parents were funding their education who were just screwing around.
Yeah.
Didn't take it seriously because they had no stake in it.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of life. People react to what they have a stake in. And as it turns out, my kids did fine. I mean, one of them basically worked his way through, and the other one got through on scholarships, and one scrimped and saved and paid for their education. So they were, it can be done. Although I got to admit, it's harder for young people today than it was even for my kids, and certainly harder than it was for me, because the government got involved and jacked up the price of education by a factor of 8.
Yeah.
And so some of the tougher questions is, how do we undo all of this?
Can it be done?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be, but it's going to take relentless effort over decades. It's not going to something that is going to be able to happen quickly, because we've dug ourselves into a pretty deep hole.
Yeah.
But as they say, if you're in a hole, the first thing to do is stop digging.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we're still digging like crazy.
Now, to touch on that, how you didn't pay for your kids' education. Well, I think looking back, your kids will probably say that was one of the best decisions you've ever made as a parent. I mean, they got a whole different education alongside their university education that kids that just get that free ride don't get.
That's right.
So on your view of welfare, there's a lot of people that legitimately need welfare. They're disabled, they have mental issues, they can't work for whatever it may be. They don't make enough to feed a large family, and welfare has its place. But there's a lot of people that do take advantage of social safety nets. And I would like to know what percentage of those people that are taking advantage of those systems, where they just see it coming in permanently, put no effort into getting themselves out of there, because they have no stake, they have no motivator.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on welfare and social systems like that?
Well, I think you're right. I think the place to start is that we can't let the safety net turn into a hammock. It's not supposed to be a place where you live. Now, if you want to talk to me about the government funding programs to help people get out of poverty, I'm there.
Yeah.
Whether it's job training, whether it's teaching them about creating value, whether there are lots and lots of avenues that probably have to be explored. The other thing is that we need to do it on a much smaller scale. By small, I don't mean the size of the enterprise itself. I mean happening at a more local level. Because here's the problem. The government has no way to tell who's trying and who's not.
Hmm.
If we were doing it at the county level, or in the US, even at the precinct level, where it's your neighbors that are providing the welfare,
Hmm.
have local taxes that provide that welfare, then if so and so is using the safety net as a hammock, we all know about it. We're watching him
Hmm.
do it.
Yeah.
And we can say, hey, buddy, get it in gear or get out.
Hmm.
And like people often talk to me about the kibbutzim in Israel and say, well, the collectivism works there. Well, part of the thing is it's exactly like what I just described.
Hmm.
It can work, and even then it only works on a limited basis, but it can work at that limited basis because the elders are running the system and they know who's doing what.
Yeah.
And so I think the first thing we have to do is localize it, and we have to actually make it helpful. Because here's the facts. In the US, when we started the war on poverty, the poverty rate was 8%. You know what it is today? 8%.
Hmm.
We haven't moved the dial a jot. So why are we spending billions and trillions of dollars to do it when it's not accomplishing anything? And so, yeah, we have to dramatically reform the system. The other thing is, what we do actually makes things worse. We talk about in the U.S. we have a system where we pay for people's food
Hmm.
if they qualify. What that does is it injects government dollars into the food system. Now,
Hmm.
what's going to happen when we inject government dollars into the food system? Prices are going to go up.
Yeah.
It's an inevitable consequence of doing that. And so, when they're using their EBT cards to buy groceries, we're inflating the price of groceries,
Hmm.
and furthermore, we're helping people do stuff that's bad for them.
Hmm.
Some of the biggest expenditures on those EBT cards is junk food.
Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
Food stamp for Coca-Cola.
exactly. And so, why in the world do we want to be doing that? No, I'm all for helping people. I used to commute like an hour and a half a day each way,
Mhm.
and I would run across a lot of people on street corners asking for handouts. So what I did was I went to Costco and would go there and buy a case of beans. And whenever they asked for a handout, I would hand them a can of beans. Now, why did I do that? Well, if somebody's hungry, I'm happy to help.
Hmm.
I can do something about that. But I'm not going to give him money that he's going to go buy Coke with or go
Hmm.
buy wine with.
Hmm.
Because if I give him a can of beans, I'm controlling the good.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't do in our welfare systems. We aren't in control of where the money goes. And we're finding out here in the US that I don't know if you've been up with the US news media, but right now in Minnesota and a couple of other states, we're finding out that there's been massive amounts of fraud, billions and
Hmm.
billions of dollars going to individuals defrauding the system.
Hmm.
That's the other problem is it's just too fraud prone.
Yeah.
So again, I'm sensing that both of us, you and I, and probably most of your listeners, are compassionate people.
Hmm.
I want to help people, but I want to make sure I'm really helping.
Yeah.
And that's the key piece that we keep missing in our welfare programs is that we're not really helping. In fact, many times we're doing more harm than good.
Hmm.
We're actually keeping people in that system. We're keeping them
Yeah.
in poverty. Now, what does that do to their lives? What does that do to their self-respect? I mean, if I were to win the lottery tomorrow, I would almost certainly find good causes to give it all to.
Hmm.
Why? Because I didn't earn that money. It's nothing to be proud of.
Hmm.
I mean, so I picked 6 lucky numbers. What does that make me?
Yeah.
It's meaningless. And
Hmm.
so if I make some money off my book, I can look back at that and go, yeah, I made that money because I did that.
Yeah.
I accomplished something. And that's what the people that are consuming welfare don't get that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And a part of that is because of the way we teach people. I don't know what happens in Canada, but in the US, we give everybody a participation trophy, and we
It's getting bad here.
stop giving them most valuable player trophies. Now, I'm okay with giving people participation trophies. Showing up is important.
Step
You don't
one.
get any, but we also need to be giving them the most valuable player trophies and
Mm-hmm.
the best hitter trophies and the most forward passes trophies or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
we need to reward people for what they do good. And along those same lines, in education, we need to flunk people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that sounds terrible, but kids can only learn what they're good at, how they can explore their bliss and create value if they find out what they're good at and what they're not good at.
Yeah.
And so if you flunk a kid in art and give him A's in math, that's telling him something really, really important. It's saying, kid, you might not want to go into a career in art. You might want to pursue something that's mathematically based. But we're depriving them of that critical feedback by saying we're going to pass everybody. So what does the kid learn? Nothing valuable.
Yeah.
What he finds out is I could do almost anything because it's all going to work out the same no matter what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a terrible message to send people.
Mm-hmm.
We all need to learn what we're good at, because again, what my version of the ideal world is that we all find our bliss, develop our talents in that area, and then pursue that to create value for others.
Mm-hmm.
And we can only do that if we have some understanding of what we're good at and what we're not good at.
And there are some schools that do go that direction, and they're far and few between.
That's right.
And then schools are so focused on having a low failure rate. And
Yeah.
it's almost backwards thinking. You want this school to look like it runs a lot of people through it and they all pass. And it's like, or do you want a school that shows it's got actually kind of a pretty stern failure rate? And then it maybe thinking as a parent, well, my kid's going to have to work if my kid goes to this school, work their butt off.
Mm-hmm.
It's reverse thinking, but the way they're scored, especially on, in Canada, if you go to a trade school, which I did, it's funded by the government. You get there on an apprenticeship program and your ride is getting partially paid for, and they don't want to have a low failure rate. They want to look good, and teachers get in crap for failing people.
Yeah.
So they get pushed through, and then the product coming out the other side is not doing any good for anybody in society.
That's right.
You have a subpar tradesman that doesn't even know, that's not qualified to do the job, and it just wreaks havoc in the system.
Yep.
But they don't get those dollars if they don't get that high pass rate. They get scrutinized, and it's just backwards thinking, and it's not helping the country.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And
Yeah.
and these are the problems we have to address, but we can only address them if we first of all understand those things.
Yeah.
And as a society, particularly those that are leaning socialist in their thinking, deny all of these things.
Yeah.
They think that someone who got passed along and wants to make a living making jewelry, I've known a couple of people that wanted to do that, and they didn't do well.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them blamed the system.
Yeah.
They both said, well, it's the system's fault. And the reality is they were building, like the musicians I talked about, they were building jewelry that they liked.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool. If you're doing art for art's sake, that's great, but don't expect to make money doing it.
Mm-hmm.
If I said, well, I actually talked to one of them. I said, well, have you done any like market research to find out what kind of jewelry people want?
Mm-hmm.
He said, no, that would be selling out. I said, well, yeah, you could call it that if you want to, but if you want to make money by creating value for people, you have to create something that they value.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really pretty simple, and it's not a punitive thing. The Beatles have sold a lot more records than the Grateful Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean the Beatles sold out? Well, I don't know. I don't know how you talk about those things, but it's very clear that they created music that more people liked
Mm-hmm.
than the Grateful Dead did. Now, on the other hand, I don't think the Grateful Dead whined about that. They knew the choice they were making. They made the kind of music they wanted to make and were willing to take less money because of that. Well, that's great. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And so you can call stuff selling out, but it's a meaningless term. If you want to get, let me paraphrase the Beatles. And in the end, the value you take should be equal to the value you make. That's the
Capitalism.
that's the kind of a world we want, where everybody is creating value for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way we can do that is by first acknowledging what those other people value.
Yeah.
And
or finding something that I created this new kind of jewelry.
Yeah.
You get lucky and now you get out of there. Like people do make things they love and people just start to take on it because they love it. That's an emerging market.
That's true. That's of course true. But you can't blame the system if it doesn't work out that way.
And you can't plan on going out making a whole bunch of money. That is when you do something you love and there's nothing wrong with. That's a great place for a side hustle.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. If you want to make jewelry on the side outside your regular job, by all means, and maybe you will be selling it on an infomercial someday. Who knows?
That's right. And that's great. But too many people tend to blame the system when, and I'm not saying it's their fault. You know, the people I'm talking, it isn't their fault. They just don't understand. Were never taught that the only way you can get value is by making value, but that value is always in the mind of the consumer.
Yeah. And
so they're the ultimate judge. And sometimes they're going to judge things that you think are stupid. Well, I mean, like 30 or 40, 50 years ago, I don't remember, in the US, there was a pet rock craze where some guy made a ton of money selling rocks with eyes glued on them. Yeah. Okay. Some guy came up with some dumb idea and got rich doing it.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will value just crazy stuff. Okay, fine. And give it your shot. But like you say, make it a side hustle. Don't bet your life on the fact that you're going to be able to sell pet rocks.
NFTs.
Yeah, exactly.
They had absolutely no value to anything, and people made a fortune on them for a short while. It's just unbelievable. Art, fine art.
Yeah.
I don't think there's an art piece that should be worth $100 million, but they're out there because people think that there's value in that.
That's right.
To themselves. It's very niche. You know, you go back to the burger flipper story. If you're applying for the job to flip the burger, what do you want to do? Do you want to flip burgers for the rest of your life? Or do you think McDonald's would be a good company to move up the chain and then you better work your butt off while you're there? Or if this is just a stepping stone, what's your exit plan? Where are you going to go to in a year from the burger place? Don't just go into it with no plan and just sit there and then complain because you're not succeeding.
That's exactly right. And now, I mean, I'm sure that there are probably some people that would like to spend their life flipping burgers. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's cool too. I mean, I'm not putting down burger flippers.
Those guys aren't complaining.
Yeah. So, but it's what it's about is finding your bliss, what you love. Yeah. Finding where your talents lie, and then say, how can I merge those two ideas? How can I take what I love and what I'm good at and use that to create value for other people? But remembering that you have to honor the fact that they get to decide what's valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. Customer is always right.
The customer is always right. That's exactly right.
How many children did you say you had?
I have 3. And
so I was just curious, you had the one thing where you made them pay for their education if they chose to be educated. What other tricks did you have as a parent to teach your kids these principles growing up from a young age? Is there anything you can think of off the top of your head?
Well, we definitely stress self-reliance a lot. We encourage them to be in sports and to explore their bliss.
Mhm.
Uh, our oldest son, we when he was probably 10 or 11, I guess, we bought one of the first TRS-80 home computers,
Mhm.
which,
Mhm.
I mean, back in the day, these things were like garbage compared to
Yeah.
but he learned how to program, and he learned how to program really, really well.
Mhm.
He just got into it, and we of course encouraged that, and he developed a talent
Yeah.
that he makes a pretty good living at doing it today.
Yes.
Um, and so, yeah, our our daughter was we encouraged her desire to do art,
Mhm.
the exact opposite of our older son, and she is an art teacher
Mhm.
and does a good job doing stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean,
Did they take jobs at young ages? Did you encourage them to work as young people, 12, 13, 14?
well, that was all variable. First of all, in the U.S. now, it's a lot harder to do that. I said I was a
Yeah.
paper boy at 11. That would be
Yeah.
illegal in the U.S. today.
Yeah.
There are child labor laws that prevent you can't get a job typically before you're 16. Now,
16 for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
my oldest son got around that by doing programming for businesses,
Mm.
probably starting when he was 13 or 14. I don't remember. But so he was immune to child labor laws because he was doing
Yeah.
it on contract.
Yeah.
And that's how he paid his way through college. Um,
Wow, good for him.
um, and so, yeah, I mean, I think self-reliance is really, really important. Um,
Mhm.
we have to encourage people to find stuff they're good at and get better and better and better.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't force your kid to be a doctor if they don't show any passion for it.
right,
Try to
exactly.
find the passion and hunker down on it.
Yeah, because and there's too much of that. People, saying, well, you have to be an engineer or whatever.
Have to go to university,
Yeah, and
period,
and yeah, and I think that's wrong. I mean, you said you went to trade school, and I think that's
Mhm.
really important. I mean,
Mhm.
um, and 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 it's a good thing. I mean, I my plumber is great. I mean,
Yeah.
I need his help. He
Yeah.
creates value for me, and
Yeah.
he makes a lot of money doing that,
Yeah.
and he should. There's no whining here. People look at that. They say, well, the plumber charges too much. Well, then do it yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
eh, you know, but usually uh, people like plumbers are good when self-reliance can get to be too much.
Mhm.
In other words, could I figure out how to solve my own plumbing problems? Yeah, I could. It would take me a lot longer than it takes him. And because of that, I would be giving up what's called opportunity cost. I could
Mhm.
have used that same amount of time to make money doing something I'm good at.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I do what I'm good at, and I can, in that time, make the money to pay him plus a little more.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, there's the all jack of all trades, master of none thing. It's better to use what you're good at to pay for what you're not so good at.
Yeah.
And so, like, I when I was a kid, I used to be pretty good at working on cars. They've gotten a lot more complicated now,
Yeah.
but even if I could still do it, it's not worth my time.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
so,
think
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, continue.
No,
Well, I
go
was just
ahead.
gonna say, I believe there's a story about Floyd Mayweather, and everybody said Floyd Mayweather's got tax problems. He's got all these overdue taxes, and then you get reading about it, and everybody's like, Floyd Mayweather's the money he owes on taxes. He's making way more money off that right now than what the government's charging him in interest. So he is pushing that bill to the very last legal day he possibly has to pay that bill, and he's
Yeah,
maximizing his profit on that money on the back end.
yeah,
And that is just figuring out those little tricks in life. I could pay someone I could paint my house but the person's going to charge me, say, whatever, X amount of dollars to paint my house. How much do you value your time, and what could you do with that time in the meantime? And that is trading. I think that you are adding enough value to my life for the cost that I can do other things.
Yeah. And along those lines, you mentioned Floyd Mayweather. I'll bet this is true for most of your listeners, certainly the ones in the US. I don't know how the Canadian tax system works, but I see in the US all the time people celebrating when they get their money back from taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, if you're getting money back, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you've been paying the government extra all year long. You're making them an interest-free loan so that you can get some of that money back at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. I always want to end up paying taxes at the end of the year because then they're making me an interest-free loan.
Yeah.
But people don't think about that kind of stuff. They think of some sort of magical gift when they get a tax return. Yeah. It's not a magical gift. You're just getting paid back an interest-free loan that you made to the government.
Yeah.
Is the government really so poor that you feel like you need to lend them money?
Yeah. Well, I heard another line from a guy once too. He said, "You want to be paying $1 million a year in taxes. You would be so lucky if you had to pay $1 million a year in taxes."
That's exactly right.
And it's true. Get out there and work so that you have to pay that many taxes. And socialism isn't going to get you there.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Doug, I think we'll cap it for today. I think that's a good perspective for a lot of young people that do think that the talking points they see on TV to socialism are a good idea. And you can get sucked into that pretty quick without really knowing what's going on and what the downstream effects of that would be. So very insightful conversation, good for me, and greatly appreciate you coming on. Do you have any final thoughts you want to add?
No. If they want to learn more about it, they can go to my website, dougcardell.com, or they can buy my book, Why Socialism Struggles.
Yeah, and it's on some website that's fairly popular, you mentioned?
Yes, it's on Amazon. Well, it's also on a lot of other places, on Barnes & Nobles. I think it's available at Target. Most places you can get books. I mean...
Audiobook?
Not yet. I'm working on that.
Yeah.
We're trying to get... It is available as an ebook and as Kindle and a hardcover.
There we go.
Probably be a paperback not too far in the distant future, and maybe an audiobook.
Yeah. Well, again, appreciate you coming on. Thank you for your time, and you take care.
Thank you, James. Enjoyed every minute of it. You have a great rest of your day.
All right.